it's this cool thing that happens. The more you shine your light, the more you attract the right people that align with your values, the more your calendar gets full with great conversations, which then brings your energy to a greater place. Just the net benefit and the serendipity behind it, I think is just, I'm a big fan, obviously. So.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Carrot Cast podcast, the podcast with a funny name, but a big mission. We help thousands of real estate investors and agents grow rock solid mindsets, do better marketing so that you can build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Trevor Mock. Let's dive into today's episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the episode of the Carrot Cast. So guys, this is going to be an extra special Carrot Cast because over the years, 2018, I think, around that time is when I encountered the person I'm going to introduce you guys to today. And I've talked about my coach. I've talked about my coach from the business perspective, from the perspective of how he's challenged me on so many parts of my life as well. And you guys finally get to meet my coach today, Dan Martell. I've had several coaches over the past 5-6 years. And Dan has been transformative, not just the business of helping us grow, into the 8 figures, but also to me, he's a human being. So I want to give you guys the same treat to kind of hear some of Dan's wisdom. Here in a bit, we'll hear his story and some of the really, really cool things that he inspires all of us to do. So welcome on to the Carrot Cast, Mr. Dan Martell.
Hey, Trevor, appreciate it, man. Dude, I just hope I can live up to whatever hype you put me under, but I'm here to give you 110%. So we'll see where this goes.
Dude, you always give 110%. So I have no doubts about that. Well, man, one thing I want to dive right into it. So you're in the middle of 75 hard again. You just finished up an Ironman. You were doing sprint triathlons before that. What do you have on the docket literally like today, physical activity wise? Because I know you're out doing all kinds of things. What are you doing today?
Wake surfing this afternoon, which I don't count as a workout for 75 hard. So I just did my first workout this morning, and then I'm going to hit the gym, lift some weights. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot, but I don't know, man. It's you just start small. One day I woke up and I decided to try to run. I made it about 2.5 kilometers. I am Canadian, so all those listening, I'm from Canada, and then to go from 2.5 kilometers to finishing a full distance Ironman triathlon is still blows my mind. So I don't know, just proof that if you wake up and just try to get a little bit better every day, that certain crazy things when you started were considered way outside of what's possible just become part of that realm of possibilities.
Dude, so I love it. We're going to dive into that. And I want to talk about how people can kind of unleash not only their time, we're going to talk about buying back time today, because that's one thing that I've learned a lot from you, and I still have a long way to go as well. But also we're going to talk about how do you unlock that person that you truly can be, the person that you're truly destined to be. Because when we first met, my limit on where I thought that we could go as a business and myself as a person was down here. And then every time that we would, be at a boardroom mastermind, wherever up in Canada or, Atlanta or wherever, I would come back like up leveled, or off of a coach, I'd come back up level, coaching call up leveled. And I remember there was one time, and it was last year, right at the start of the pandemic. And then we're going to dive in and introduce you fully. But this is guys, this is what an amazing coach and friend does for you guys. Start of the pandemic. I was trying to figure out how to deal with just all the changes that were happening. We weren't sure what was going to happen in the real estate market and our software company and the dozens of employees that we have. And, Dan and I started talking about it, but he said this one question, like, are you working out? Are you moving? I'm like, dude, I'm not. Since the pandemic hit, I stopped coming into our office gym, and I wasn't. And he challenged me right then and there to get the body moving, get the brain pumping. And even in that moment, I ended up running a half marathon, which I never in my life thought that I even could do it. Not that I didn't want to do it. I never thought I could do it physically because of a syndrome I was born with, a skeletal syndrome. And I did it. And since then, so many other milestones. We'll talk about it on this as well. But I just appreciate you, man, as a human being and someone who pushes me. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that story. I think, my philosophy is that if we want to have the right emotions to attack our days, we have to move our body, right? And emotions essentially is energy in motion. And I think the net benefits of getting your sweat on, for me, every day man, it outweighs all the frustration challenges of scheduling or getting that done. So, that's just part of my prompts for a lot of my clients is, what are you doing to get your sweat on? So I'm glad but again, most of them don't take it to the level you do. And that's why you're awesome to work with. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Dude, I thank you, man. So let's dive into who you are. So introduce yourself, Dan. And you've got a fascinating background. I shared an Instagram post the other day and tagged you to it. I'm like, man, this reminds me of you. And we'll talk about what that is here in a sec. But who is Dan Martell, and what's the story?
Man, I'm still trying to figure that out. I think that it's a never ending journey. And, if people ask me to use descriptors, I would say, father of two, Max and Noah, two incredible boys, Irish twins, husband to Renee, who's an incredible woman, passionate entrepreneur. I just think entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development program. And then somebody that came from a lot of challenges to rise above them. I believe that, somebody was out there looking out for me and helped guide me, and, want to use my life as an example for what we can create. And, even though, for those that don't know, I grew up in a really challenging environment. Mom's an alcoholic. My dad was in sales, so he's always on the road, and, second oldest of 4 kids, diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11, got taken out of my home, put into foster care, when I was 11, 12, grew up in the system, group homes, etc. Found myself in jail. First time I was 15, again, when I was 17, I got in a high-speed chase and almost took my life by pulling a gun on the police. And, it was really like, there's been a lot of pivotal moments for me, but one of the ones that really shaped me, and I think, encourages me day by day to kind of do as much as I can to breathe the belief into other people is, this guard named Brian. I got in a fight in jail and got sentenced to what they call the hole, which is solitary confinement for 3 days. And on the 3rd day, Brian kind of came. He was on vacation when the fight happened, and he pulled me out, and super disappointed. And Brian was one of those guards that was like, he was a cool guard. He wasn't like friendly, but if you did the right things, he respected that. And he would look the other way if you wanted kind of 2 desserts or something like that. And, so I was a little disappointed in myself that he was kind of pissed off, and he takes me out of the, solitary confinement, was walking me back to the cell block, and we walked past the door that normally would go in. And like, this is a prison. Like, I don't know any other doors other than that room. And he brings me into the guard unit that kind of looks over both cell blocks in the corner with like one-way mirrors. I'd never obviously seen inside there. I knew I wasn't even supposed to be in there. And Brian sits me down and just looks at me quietly and just asks me why I was here. Mm-hmm. And I started explaining about the fight I got in with this kid named Kurt. He goes, no, not the fight. He goes, why are you here? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I got in a high-speed chase and drugs. And he goes, nah, he goes, you don't belong here. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I've been working here for like 6 years, Dan. I've been in around kids like yourself. And I can tell you, when I look around, the way you show up, the work you do, the way you try to stay out of, the politics of things, I have no clue why you're here. You don't believe here. And if you've never heard somebody tell you that before, I want you to be the first person to hear it.
Wow.
I want to be the first person to tell you. And he just cracked me wide open, man. Like, I don't know if anybody had ever said that to me before, but it was the first time I heard it. And, it's because he had no reason to do it. He could have got in trouble for pulling me aside and bringing me in the guard unit. He had no upside in telling me this. But that belief that he spoke into me just allowed me to kind of double down on the beliefs I had that, I knew I didn't make great decisions in life to that point, but I wasn't a bad person, if that makes sense. And a few months later, I got released to a rehab center that literally transformed my life. And I spent 11 months there rebuilding my emotional understanding, my self-esteem, my confidence, working on the self-doubt I had in my life. And that's where I discovered programming. And it had obviously a really big impact on my life. So yeah, man, I just feel super grateful and blessed to be here today. And I want to be use as an example for that. I work with a lot of at-risk youth. It's why I push myself every day. I don't know. Like, I believe that someday I'm going to meet my maker, and he created me in his image.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that I live up to those expectations.
Yep. Dude, your story, man, like every time I hear it, it's like an onion. There's another layer to it. I don't think I'd heard the prison guard element to that yet. And that's so powerful, because one thing you mentioned, Dan, that I see in the way that you lead, and I've tried to mimic it as much as I can to our 48 employees now, which is crazy to even talk about that. I think when we started working, we were 15 employees, 20 maybe, or 50 now. And so one thing you mentioned that the guard had said was he was speaking confidence in you. He was speaking, that wasn't the word, but like he was speaking into you a bigger belief for yourself than you had. And I see you do that with us as well. How do you do that with your kids? Because I know with Max and Noah, they're your life, dude. It's like amazing seeing the way that you show up every day as a father. How do you carry that into fatherhood as well with Max and Noah?
There's a lot of things, and I feel really lucky to be introduced to, this discipline of coaching, right? Like, prior to that, I'm an operator. I'm a builder. I like to create companies, as you know. Like, I will never not build companies, and now more than ever, I'm involved in more companies at the C-level, executive, strategic, like in the weeds. And I love it because it's a people component to it. Like, it's really, I always say, don't wish that it is easier, wish that you were better. And the more I create these scenarios where I have to step up, I just like that kind of pressure. But coaching, yourself and dozens of other incredible founders, made me a better dad, right? Because the philosophies that I had to, or the skill set I had to learn to coach, right? Because it's easy to do. Like, if I have a vision, I just create. When I'm working through people, I need to slow it down. I need to be more patient. I need to learn to lead through questions. I need to learn how to allow somebody to get to a place and then reinforce that positive belief and really create the questions that helps them attack the negative belief to rewire the neurons in the myelin in their brain to create this new neural pathway of action, right? So how does that show up as a dad? Few things. One is, I don't reward the outcome, I reward the effort. So my kid might come to me with a completed Lego set that a 12-year-old should have built, and he's 8. And I don't celebrate that he completed it. I celebrate the amount of effort and times that he could have gave up that he didn't. Dude, right.
Yep.
And that, there's we created this, what does it mean to be a Martell? Right. And there's a bunch of things that you call them values, call them principles, call them North Star metrics, whatever you want to call them. But essentially, there's this identity that I've created for being a Martell that is what I use to help them understand when they're struggling with things or when they're lacking decisiveness, like, use that as a compass. Right. And I think that would have never came to me if I didn't, study what is required to build world-class companies. Right. And just a bunch of that stuff. But, one thing recently I think that's worth sharing is, I was reading a book about, this guy that just had somebody show up in his life and just went with him on the journey. And I realize as, men, women, but men predominantly, we want to fix things, right? Yep. You may have seen this video where the woman's got a nail in her head, and she's like talking about her sweater coming off and it's getting caught on the nail. And the husband's like, I think if we just take the nail out, maybe. She's like, it's not about the nail. And he's like, all right. I say that because, when my kids have issues, I want to solve the problems, but I realize sometimes I just got to be with them.
Yep.
So like, I don't like yesterday we were out mountain biking and both kids, one, Noah first, totally just smashed himself. And I didn't try to fix it. And I just said, what do you want to do, buddy? Like, where do you want to go? I'm here with you. Right. He's like, I want to go home. Perfect. Brought him home. Then me and Max went out, and Max just totally biffs it. Like just bang in the bushes, laying there. And I'm just like, I'm here with you, man. Like, there was no fixing it. There was no picking him up. It was just being there. And I just, I learned that in business. I think sometimes, again, it's a tool. It's like, you got to know when to use it, when not to use it. But I'm still learning, man. And I just feel like my kids was the first time where I felt like I had my heart running around outside my body.
Gotcha. Yep.
Having kids is literally the feeling if you took your heart and put it outside your body and it was interacting with the world and you were trying to protect it. And it's just such a blessing. I mean, my wife, first and foremost, really shined a light on my opportunity as a man for her. And then my kids definitely brought it to another level. And I just consider it, especially knowing what I went through as a kid and, wanting to be the generation that breaks that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that's something I reflect on sometimes where I'm like, wow, my mom had alcoholic parents and my grandparents had alcoholic parents and, I don't drink and I don't want to bring that reality into my kids' life. And if that's an opportunity for me to break that through line, I want to do that.
Dude, I love it. So Dan, like I was saying, you and we first started working together. I think it was 2018, and I can't place like the moment or the time, but I remember it was shortly after we started to work together, and I probably didn't have the full context for the years before that either. I definitely didn't, but you kicked it into a different level, like around a year, maybe like 2019 or something like that. I'm like, dude, Dan is stepping. He was already at a high level, but he's stepping it up. The physical challenges were starting to come through. There were just a whole host of things. And ever since then, it's just next level after next level, mentally and physically, and everything follows. Was there anything around that time that like what switch flipped for you, or was there one?
There's been a lot of different ones, right? I'll share a pretty personal one that, it was 6-7 years ago. I reached out to my dad. I was speaking at an event and I was on the drive to go speak at this event. It was about 2 hours away. And I just called him up and asked him if he wanted to join, I thought it'd be a fun 2-hour drive, et cetera. And me and my dad are like, he's my hero, but for whatever reason, I think he has a hard time with who I am because I'm incredibly driven and independent and accountable. And as a father, he doesn't know how to interface with that. Cause I think there's this tendency to want to help and protect your child. Right. Yep. So it's very rare that somebody would feel comfortable being a peer, let alone
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? So like, what was interesting about that conversation is that he was asking me something about my fines. I just never talked about my dad because I didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable. But yet he made me feel so inferior. Now, Trevor, like you gotta understand at this point, like I'm doing really well. Like, like I don't want to say like I've never been a money guy, but my life. Like this would have been after I sold Clarity. So, if I showed my dad my bank account, it would probably create a lot of conflict because he's just never seen that kind of thing. Right. And I never lived that way. I've never shown that side of things. But yet he had this ability to make me feel like I was this 13-year-old fuck up. But in that moment, instead of being upset at my dad, I asked myself, where am I under indexing? Gotcha. Where do I know I'm under indexing? And in that moment, 6 years ago, I realized I'm not being deliberate about my mornings. And I decided literally from that moment forward, I will wake up at 5 a.m. every day for the rest of my life. Gotcha. And as you probably know, I now wake up at 4 a.m.
So you see it every morning, man. Every morning on IG. Yep.
Even on vacation, I don't give. That is just something I know that I can do. And if I'm not doing that, it's because I'm disconnected from my personal vision and goals for my life, because what I want to accomplish is going to require that. And that's fine. If you don't want that, I don't have a problem with somebody saying, I just want to live this life, and that's fine. But don't tell me you want this grand outcome and then show up half-assed. So the gift that my dad gave me in that moment, which had nothing to do with him and had everything to do with me, was asking myself and being critical of like, how am I showing up? Because what I've discovered is when we feel certain ways about other people, for example, if I see a friend share something on social media and I get jealous or I'm like judging that person, what we're doing in that moment is we're actually judging ourselves.
Yep.
Because you wouldn't even have that thought if you didn't think that. So if you see your friend finish a marathon and you're like, why did he do that? And you start it's because you know that you have the potential to do that. So that belief set just unlocked another level. So then you go from the morning routine to then the habits. Then I would say other things that came with that was honestly triathlons. When I started 2 years ago, people see me today finishing a full distance Ironman and they go like, oh, he's always been an athlete. Like you said, like you seeing a difference. The thing is that the physical is an external proof of change. What my dad, and I love my dad, and we've talked about this quite a bit. The challenge with personal development and the mental side of the game is there's no visible change that people can see.
Gotcha. Yep.
So as you're changing and upgrading your beliefs, and it will change your actions, which will transform your life. But most people don't watch my bank account every day. Most people do not know how big my team is. My dad had no clue. I remember a year ago, he goes, Dan, how big is your company? I literally took a screenshot of our Xero account, sent it to him over text, then took a screenshot of our accountability chart, sent it over text. And I said, I'm here to answer any questions. Because me and my brother were talking, and my brother just said one day, he goes, because I was talking about this, I was like, do you feel like every time you talk to dad, he just makes you feel horrible? And he goes, that's just the way dad is. Like, he asks you those questions, not because he thinks you're an idiot, but because that's how he communicates. That's how he interfaces, right? Like, that's his love language. His love language is, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? But Trevor, if every time you told me something like, you're like, I have 48 employees, right? And I go, but Trevor, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Then you're going to go, man, Dan thinks I'm an idiot. Yep. But my dad's love language is that, right?
Gotcha.
Again, you don't
trying
get
to fix
to that.
things or help. Yeah. Yep.
So you don't even get to that place unless you do some real deep work on yourself. So, it's been really fun going through this process of what's the next level, and triathlon just brought a level of confidence, because I went from 2 years ago, not being even a person who would wear spandex. Like, I would always joke, like, people are like, you should get a road bike. And I'm like, I don't want to wear spandex, right? I'll run. I like running. Because Will Smith once said, the keys to success is running and reading, right? He said, you run because when your mind tells you to stop, you don't. And every time you don't, you build a new level of, persistence, confidence, grit, et cetera. And you read to fill your mind up with knowledge to be able to actually create and be resourceful and build. And so I've always loved writing and reading, even though I wasn't healthy. I didn't understand health. I even think people set goals based on their past, not on the potential. Right. So people are like, I want to lose 15 pounds. Why? Because I used to weigh 15 pounds less. It's like, yeah, but ask yourself, what is the body composition that's ideal for somebody your age and your size? Dude. That's a really good question, because that's where you should be setting your goal. So to me, and I coach my team about this all the time, is this is your potential as I see it, and this is your performance. And that gap is what I coach against. That's why when I work with you, I see more, but I want to bring it to you in a way that you can see it to take action, because me seeing it doesn't work. But that's what coaching to me is. The triathlon, the big thing was learning to swim. I could swim enough to jump off a cliff and swim back to the shore. Okay. Doggy paddle style. Right. And going into a pool, starting at zero, like that probably was the first time in my life for a long time that I started at zero with a new skill. Like, a lot of people don't do that. My wife started drumming 2 years ago, and I thought that was so cool, because like most people don't pick up instruments later in their life.
No, not at all.
Right. So she inspired me just by that. Right. And that's what I love about inspiration, is it's not the size of the task that people undertake. It's the deficit that that person is starting at. Gotcha. That's what inspires, right? Inspiration is not, I ran an Ironman. It's, you've never run in your life and you just did 3 kilometers around your block. That inspires me. It's the person with no legs, no arms, like legit climbing, a mountain in Africa. Like, that's inspiring, because the deficit is it's so real. So yeah, triathlons, going from not learning how to swim to doing 3 sprint triathlons that same year to, and then when COVID happened, I just feel such a sense of responsibility for my clients. Yeah. And I hope I said this when I was going through it. And, the race got canceled. So we were registered for a half Ironman, and it got canceled. And I just told everybody, like, I can't control the world right now. And the amount of uncertainty is to a degree I've never seen. Like uncertainty times 1,000. It's like driving a race car in the fog.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where the track is going to be when the fog lifts, but all I know is that we can control our controllables. Mm. And for me, that meant I can still run that half Ironman. I don't need somebody to organize a race to do it. Yep. I can still decide to show up and do the work. I can put in the reading. I can do the activities. I could decide to learn the skills to be one of the world's best coaches, period. And like have that as a goal. I can essentially, where most people would contract out of fear and clarity, I decided to get really clear on what I could control and then take those things and decide to make them 2-3 times more, grand or bold, right? Because I really think bold is such a great word. Most people, it's not, somebody said, I was reading this morning, it's not the smartest people that succeed, it's the one that are the most bold.
Dude.
Because I know a lot of really high IQ people, but they taken bold decisions. So that was what I brought my clients with. And I just told every one of them, I'm not going to let you guys fail. I went daily videos. Yep. I would do calls with every client that was struggling, because a lot of my clients had their whole customer bases just disintegrate. Like they served restaurants, retailers, like gone. So when that happened, man, I told my team, it was a rally cry. I said, it's easy to look cool when shit's good. Mm. Easy. When the market's good, Inc. 500, fastest growing company. Come on.
Guys, everybody right now, you guys are in the real estate market, probably the biggest real estate boom possibly in history. That's actually fundamentally a good boom, not the 2006-8 boom. Listen to what Dan's saying right now, guys, because everybody looks smart right now. Everybody smart when values are going up 20% a year. Everybody.
And then guess what? The tide will go down and we'll see who is swimming naked, as Warren Buffett says.
Yep.
Right. So to me, it's about, really stepping up. I had a friend once call me up. One of my best friends, Nick, I've told this story publicly and he shared it publicly, but he had one of his signs. It's like this LED sign he puts up on a wall. His team put out, it's like $175,000 LED board. And somebody put the hook, the rivet into a part they thought was like solid steel, but it was actually just like the metal sheet. And as they were lifting the sign, it fell and smashed the sign.
Gosh, no way.
And he calls me up. Yeah. And I mean, this is a material kind of impact, right? He had to write it off. No insurance was going to cover it. And he's just like, what do I do? And I say, well, here's what I've discovered is easy to say we're great when things are good, but it's when things are wrong, we have the chance to prove how good we are. And that's the way I looked at the market in the whole pandemic was, I think I'm good. I think I'm capable. I think I'm resourceful. I think I'm creative. I think I'm tenacious. I think I've got grit. Now I get a chance to prove it. And I want to drag everybody across the finish line with me. And I don't know. That's where that came from. It's me fighting for my freedom. Like, that's the truth. Like, I don't wish what I went through on anybody, but I am damn grateful for what I went through, and I wouldn't change a friggin' second. I am who I am because of that. I'm proud of it. I like the life I live and the person that I get to show up when things get tough, and that's just my default. But long answer, apologize, but that's just kind of what my heart's got.
No, I appreciate it big time. And out of that season, I do want to go to a little bit on buyback principle here in a bit, but out of that season, I noticed it big time, Dan, obviously, because we hopped in that call, but then I would see what you were doing. And I recognize it years before with other people as well, but especially with you and other people, same thing. I've mimicked that to other people as well in my influence sphere of stepping out there and documenting what you're doing, because it inspires people. It inspires the heck out of people, and you're just so damn consistent on it. That's my next thing is like add more consistency to my life, because there's too much inconsistency right now. I need to nail that. I'm going to nail it. But as I would see you doing that, I'm like, damn, I could do that too. So let me just go out there and run, and then I'll start posting it as well. Not to make myself look cool, but because there might be someone else on the other end of that Instagram thing looking at me going, shoot, I don't have within me what I think, that, or what Trevor does. Like, no, I'm going to speak it into you. And I started seeing other people running, and I started seeing other people doing 75 hard as I did it the first time. And then swimming, same thing, man. I saw you did the triathlon, and I'm like, I don't know how to swim though. Oh, but he started the same way. And so that was my big goal going into this year is this is going to be the year that I don't finish the year not knowing how to swim. Because every single year of my life that I can remember, I'm like, I need to learn how to swim this year. And then I didn't. And then in 75 hard, I'm just like, damn, I want to learn how to swim. And I just showed up to the YMCA one day, not having a clue, because there was no coaches who would coach me because it was right in the middle of some shutdowns, and they brought the YMCA back that week. And so I just started swimming. It took me 2 or 3 lessons learning from YouTube. I'm like, bam, I swam my first lap ever with no like flotation device. And then it was 2 laps the next time. Then it was 3. And then it was treading water for 5 minutes. I couldn't tread water for 20 seconds before. And so guys, the reason I'm bringing this up is because as much as possible, document the things that you're doing to step out there. Don't do it just for yourself. Do it for others. Do it so you can inspire other people so they know that they have a lot more in them as well. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I call it shining your light, man. It costs nothing, and I guarantee the impact will be huge. And it may not even be something you ever hear about. I mean, so for the amount of people that tell me, I would say, I've got to guess it's 100 times more people that I will never know about. And to me, if it was one person, it's worth it. But if you impact one, I want you to know you probably impacted 100 you didn't even know. And it doesn't have to be grand. I think too often we think it has to be this like big, full distance Ironman or some big challenge. And it's like, nah, it could be learning to play an instrument, learning to meditate, whatever. The value of shining your light and living out loud, the ROI on that just feels so good. And that's why I do it. It's also a forcing function for me to be consistent. Like I share every day because I know people are watching and they're looking for guidance, as I was. I'm the biggest fan of other people. Yeah. Like that's the fun part for me is I remember, like, I have a whole row of books there and I've read over 1,000 books. I have
These things are color coded, man. Look at that.
That's Betty, our house manager. I'm not awesome. That creative. We just moved. So she took the liberty to do that. But I don't take for granted that, like, I remember reading a book and thinking, man, that's so cool. Somebody wrote a book and like, I'm going to email him, and I email him and he replies. Right. Like, and knowing the impact that book had on my life. Right. And now we live in a world with social media where I don't have to even write a book to share, to have an audience, to have an impact. Knowing that that's available to us and we don't take advantage of it, I just think it's such a missed opportunity. It's just such a blessing that costs nothing. It's take a picture, post it, but the upside is you will start to have your whole circle of influence shift, because what you do is you start attracting people that are like-minded, that are further along than you, that want to spend time with you because they see their values in you. And all of a sudden you get called into those moments and you don't have time for all these energy suckers, time vampires, et cetera. You literally, it's this cool thing that happens. The more you shine your light, the more you attract the right people that align with your values, the more your calendar gets full with great conversations, which then brings your energy to a greater place. Just the net benefit and the serendipity behind it, I think is just, I'm a big fan, obviously. So good. Do you have a hard, I want to respect your time. Do you have a hard stop at 9? I probably do, but I'll go long. Let me just check. If you do, dude, when the book comes out, I'll market the heck out of the book and we'll get buyback principle in people's hands. If you have another 5 minutes, I want to talk about buyback principle a little bit, but you let me know. You make the call. I'm supposed to be working on my book, so it's perfect. We'll do it verbally, and then I'll take what I shared and start writing. All right, cool. So buyback principle. One of the big things, especially as I've grown, Carrot, where we are today, is you go through these different phases, and I've heard 3s and 10s is when things kind of break, whether it's employee numbers or revenue numbers, and for, at least for me, every time I hit one of those phases, I let my time get sucked back into the business pretty hard, and then it would take me a while to kind of buy it back, partially using a process I call the Energy Audit, but you've taken it to the next step. So why don't we kind of dive into the buyback principle a little bit? And how do you buy back more of your time, Dan, as a busy guy, a father, a husband, a business owner of multiple businesses, an influencer, and a dude who's out there living life like full on every day? How do you buy back that time? I'll give you the core principles. first off, I believe that entrepreneurs will not grow into pain, meaning that as they grow, they hit this thing called the pain line. And when they hit it, they do these three things that they may not even realize they're doing because they don't want to grow through it, right? And I didn't say go through it, I said grow through it because it's going to require to grow. But the three things is they either sabotage their success for a number of reasons, belief of that I deserve it, fear that it's going to be hard. So they do things like drag their feet replying to great email introductions that they could have closed bigger deals. Anytime growing requires pain, they sabotage or they stall, right? They move a little bit and then they decide that hurt, I'm going to pull back. Or they decide to sell the business because they're like, this is too painful and I don't want to have to grow and I'd rather just exit and then not deal with this like next level of who I need to become. Yeah. And the reason why I wrote this book is because I believe there's incredible artists, incredible creators, incredible innovators, visionaries that never build the businesses they could have because of this constraint. Okay, so my core philosophy, what I call a first principle behind the buyback principle, is that you should never hire people to add capacity to your business. You should hire people to buy back time from your calendar.
Gotcha.
Okay, and the reason why is if you build a business that you grow to hate, then you won't achieve your potential. And that's the 100%. Core philosophy I want to help solve. Yep. So the way you do that is you look at your calendar through that lens and you ask yourself, so if you think of like an XY axis, it's like brings you lots of joy and costs you little amount of money to, so sucks your energy and costs very little to have somebody else do it. So I created this framework called the replacement ladder. And essentially the first hire, and just so like people understand how much I believe in this philosophy, I just bought a company a few months ago and the first hire I made was the first hire in the replacement ladder, which was an executive assistant, not a VA in the Philippines, part-time, 10 hours a week. Somebody that owns, and this is how you know you've done it right, your calendar and your inbox, 100%, meaning that their first filter replies to an inbox and they manage 100% of your calendar. That's why, like, you ask, like, you have a hard stop? Yeah, my days are planned like 2 to 3 weeks into the future at 100%. And every day there's no window where I don't know what I want to be doing with that time, including spending time with my kids, working out, date nights with my wife, quarterly planning with my wife, hanging out with I just got back from a boys trip, 5 days mountain biking. Like it's all in there because I'm trying to squeeze as much out of my life. So you need somebody accountable for that. That's not you, because what happens is people don't make the decisions because they're not emotionally able to. Yep. Like this is a big idea. If you think of like the ROI of an executive assistant, few things. One, things happening while you're doing other stuff. Yep. Multi-paralyzing, huge potential, right? As you're building, they're completing, and you all of a sudden have a clone. So that's one. Two, having somebody that plays at the things you work at. I was just talking to my buddy Aaron, and he was telling me like they just finally, after 3 years, he convinced his wife to hire somebody to clean the house. And he goes, these ladies that clean our house like legitimately love to clean our house. Yep. And so not only do they love doing that for him, but he realized I also created employment for that person.
Yep.
So a lot of people that have the means, and when they're like, I don't have the money to do that, Dan. Yeah, you do. I call it your buyback budget. You have money you spend every month on salaries or contractors, wages. That wage investment every month is your buyback budget. How you allocate it is up to you. I'm just going to give you the framework. Dude, so I'll go through them real quick. So level one is the executive assistant, managing your inbox and your calendar. Then we go to anything that's delivery. So if you sell somebody something and you're involved in the delivering, hire somebody to buy that out of your calendar, because that's usually something that you can document and systematize and teach somebody else. Then there's no bottleneck for selling more because you're not involved in the delivery. Most people will stop growing because they're still, it's like they're driving their car. They like wake up every year, I'm going to double this year. And the gas is on. At the same time, they're pulling that handbrake like on, because the more they grow, the more it hurts. And there's just like this weird game of, like a car. Yeah. And then so you get rid of the delivery side, then you get rid of the marketing side. Why? Because marketing is one of those things that kind of once you figure it out, you just have somebody that's responsible for it. Not if you wake up and you feel good. Not if you wake up and you've done the work. Have somebody else be accountable for that. Then there's sales. You will always be the best salesperson. So you keep it last. And it's also likely the biggest economic value creator. So that's number 4. And once you've got that stack, just imagine this, Trevor, like you're at the place where technically you have a business that can grow and run without you. Yep. But then the top level is leadership, right? And this is when you start hiring people to manage people, right? And then you get to invest and pour into those people that kind of propagate and build out these departments for you to really scale the business. Because I believe that, and I talk a lot about examples like Andy Warhol in the book, who's an artist in New York City. He had this thing called The Factory, and The Factory was his art studio where he had interns. And his belief was, I want to be involved in the first 10% and then let people create for 80% of it. And I'll come in at the last 10% to make sure that it delivers on what I think the market wants. Yeah. And that 10-80-10 rule is just it's the same way Steve Jobs built product at Apple. It's how all great creators, Warren Buffett does investment deals. Oprah creates media companies. I mean, every company, Elon Musk builds rockets, every company that people admire follow this approach. They don't call it the buyback principle, but if you actually ask them how they do it, or you analyze their day and the interactions they have, you would see it in plain sight. And that's why I call it a first principles approach to scaling.
Dude, I'm pumped about the book, dude. When's the book coming out? Do you have a date for it, or is that secret under wraps right now?
Because I've decided to write an incredible book, it's like most things. If I could have wrote a shorter book if I had more time. Yep. That's. Yep. So I'm working with a researcher. I'm working with a designer. I really want to attack the belief set. I want to attack the confidence challenges that people have, the self-worth challenges. So it's not even about the tactical. I can give you that in 90 minutes in a webinar. I want to give you the stories. I want to give you the examples. I want to identify where I think you're going to get caught up in the beliefs and the mindset, and then attack those. And that just takes time. So it'll probably be, September 2022 by the time it's in bookstores.
Dude, I'm excited for you and also all of us that get to read it. So Dan, I want to respect your time once again, dude. Thanks for bringing the fire. You always, like you said before, you shine the light, and that's one thing that I've always noticed about you, and I just want to thank you for that, because it doesn't stop with you, and you know that, and that's part of the reason that you do what you do. But your light then lights somebody else up, and they now light up other people. And I can't imagine how many people out there have by de facto been impacted by the work that you do, and they didn't even know it. The tons of people who listen to the Carrot Cast every month. Tons of people in this industry who it seems like every time I pop into SaaS Academy, I'm like, dude, there's another one in this industry.
I coach a lot of real estate,
and it started with founders. A couple of us, and that was the coolest thing, because it's your light shines and keeps going, man. So I appreciate you big time. Where can people follow you, Dan? Find out more about you. If you're a software company owner, guys, SaaS company, go to SaaS Academy. Go to danmartell.com. But where else can people follow you and find out?
So danmartell.com is first and foremost. I've got a bunch of cool stuff, frameworks, videos on all these topics I've talked about today. Second would be my YouTube channel, where I have about 400 videos I publish every Monday, and I haven't missed a day in 5 years. And then Instagram, as you know, is where I share the behind the scenes, because I'm the kind of guy that I want to know the person I'm learning from is the real deal, and he practices what he preaches. So that's my way of just bringing you into my life and showing it, and you getting to know me on a deeper level, so that, if it feels right and you resonate with what I share and you want to work with me, then we talk. And that's just the way I think life should be.
I love it, man. Well, Dan, appreciate you, buddy. Give Renee and the boys a hey for me, and dude, enjoy the wake surfing later today. And I'm excited for our next one-on-one here, I think in a few weeks. So we're trying to schedule it.
It is, yeah.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for coming on here and shining your light.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
Later, man. Bye.